Hello, welcome to Barsha Barsha Barsha. Those of you who might be watching our live stream on YouTube, we also are actually sharing, believe it or not, um, a kind of a live link to LinkedIn. And happy LGBTQIA plus month. I always start off by singing a little song. So, Joe, get ready. I'm going to sing my fireside song for you. Can everybody this time hear my piano?
I can hear it.
Thank you. Where do you go on Mondays when you want to have fun? Where can you go on Mondays when your day is done? Well, fireside chat is where it's at. Our guests are all the best. Well, she's an extrovert, sometimes an introvert. Please help me in welcoming Joe Lampert. Help me in welcoming Joe Lampert. Thank you.
The rhyme was good.
Now, I got extrovert, introvert, and Lampert. I'd have to go Lampert. Okay, look, this is an amazing guest. It's LGBTQIA plus week. We are honored to have the inimitable Joe Lampert. Let me tell you some of the things that Joe Lampert has done, besides being a very good friend of mine. I'm going to tell you the things she did before, and then I'm going to tell you the career switch that happened here, which is a little bit, no, it's fantastic, Joe. I met Joe as an actor and singer in the show Prometheus Bound, directed by Diane Paulus up at the American Repertory Theater, ART. And since then, she has done major things. The first thing she's done that I was so impressed with is she had a starring role off Broadway in David Byrne's Joan of Arc Into the Fire, where she played Joan of Arc. I'm not going to go through the incredible resume right now, but I am going to start out by saying going from off Broadway to touring with the Tune Yards, doing amazing solo things at Ars Nova. Tell us where you're at now and tell us about your switch now, and then we're going to go backwards. What happened to you this year?
Well, I'm actually calling it a career expansion versus like a career change because like that would kind of freaks me out because I still want to perform. But during the pandemic, while deeply depressed, I was turned on to this program at Northwestern University. It was a master's program in sound arts and industries, which is a really strange niche program. It's 24 people a year is the cap, and it's only 6 years old, and it's a master's within their grad communications program. And when I was an undergrad, I was sort of like a sound designer and a director was kind of like, that was like what my major was, but I never learned any of the technical stuff to sound design. And so for whatever reason, when I was lost in the sauce during the pandemic, I on a lark decided to apply to this program. Never thought I could get in. I ended NYU with a 2.8 GPA undergrad. And I was like, there's no way that Northwestern, who never accepted me as an undergrad, will now accept me as a grad student. But I guess my 15 years or 16 years of life experience in between undergrad and now made my grades count for less and my life experience count for more. They thought that I was a unique candidate as a performer, with a very different background than most people who come into the program. And so, yeah, I got in and I've been here for 9 months. It's an accelerated master's. So it's only a year long. So I will graduate in August. And that's where I've been making sound art.
Yes, people are giving you applause for that. That is a major thing. And today we're going to preview some of her sound art because some of it is, it's based on her life experience. Now, Joe, LGBTQIA wise, you identify as she, her?
I identify as she, her, and a queer person and a dyke.
Okay. So there we go, Charlotte. Charlotte likes that. Some of us do. We co-opted the word dyke very early on. I do want to say that Joe would always invite me to the Dyke March. It's the one person in my life would say, "Are you going to the Dyke March?" Because there's a separate march we should know in New York City. I don't know what it is around the world. there's a Dyke March on the day before the Pride March. Correct, Joe?
Well, it's a pride. I mean, what's cool? Wow. What is that?
That
What's
is
cool?
somebody giving you a party rollout. A
Woo!
party
Well,
rollout. Go ahead.
what's cool about the Dyke March, what I've always loved about it is that as opposed to the Gay Pride Parade, which is a sanctioned parade
Right.
and a celebration, as it should be, the Dyke March is a non-sanctioned march. It is a protest, and it happens every year before the day before the Gay Pride Parade. Now on Pride, they also have a march that is sort of in response to the fact that the parade is a lot of rainbows and a lot of companies that sort of jump on board for that day.
Very
This is like an
commercial.
anti-rainbow, like protest, but the Dyke March has always been there. I've gone for, I think it's 17 years now, maybe 18. Yeah, I'm really, really sad to miss it this year, but it is such a powerful day, and it's extremely inclusive. I mean, they say if you identify as a dyke, you can march. If you don't, watch from the sidelines, but they're not policing what dyke means to everybody.
I
So,
love it because so many people are afraid of the word dyke, but I never felt comfortable as a lesbian. It just feels
yeah,
too femmy for me.
yeah,
And yeah, so dyke was always fun for me. It just was fun. I and my sister and I would talk back and forth. You're such a dyke, but it was funny. Anyway, we love that because Joe and I have just been commissioned. I'm going to move around a little if it's okay with
yeah.
you. By the Long Wharf Theater, Joe was asked, tell them what they asked you and how we actually came up with this.
Yeah, during the pandemic, a new artistic director took over, and he was sort of tasked with, or he wanted to diversify the artists that were included in the seasons. And so he asked, they were doing like little artist residencies, like creative artist residencies throughout the year, throughout the pandemic, on Zoom. And he asked me if I wanted to make something for it. And that really freaked me out because honestly, until this program, I didn't really consider myself a maker as deeply. And so when he asked, one of the first things that came to mind was to collaborate with Deborah because we for a long time have talked about making something together about being spirit animals for each other. We met and we formed
Yes.
a friendship that's a bond that sort of defies a working relationship, and it's sort of like a familial relationship and a queer elder to queer younger relationship, and it's intergenerational, it's Jewish, it's queer, it's dykey, it's musical theater, it's a lot of things. And so Deborah, you were the first person that came to mind, and they loved the idea. And so we're creating a sort of 2-person Sonny and Cher kind of queer cabaret together that's both talk show meets like Sonny and
Inter-
Cher show.
and intergenerational was important to us
Yeah.
because Joe and I have 30 something years between each other, and we
Hmm.
related immediately to each other when we worked together on the first show we worked on. So I just need to say that's part of it too. For some
Absolutely.
reason,
That's a huge part of it.
yeah, it's a huge part of it. Huge, huge, huge. And we have very funny. So we wrote 5 songs and 29 pages in 2 weeks. I don't know how we did it, but
I don't know
but
either.
obviously, yeah, it was enough for them to say, "Hey, thank you, Stephanie." But it was enough for them to say, "Let's develop these two." Now, our show is called right now. Working title is Conversations with Ourselves, but it's much more than that. I just do want to say though that intergenerationally is I had these years playing piano on Broadway. You and I have been in things where I music directed. I did arrange My Funny Valentine for Joe for voices and cello, which we should
Yep.
play. We should play a little of that.
That's on
Um,
YouTube.
I'm going to play that a little bit, but I do want to talk about first this incredible thing that happened to you while we were doing a workshop of a show called 86,
Yeah.
and you got the call that David Byrne had chosen you to be Joan of Arc off Broadway in his show about Joan of Arc, Into the Fire. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah, I mean, they had been doing workshops of the show for like 5 years, and I had never been asked to be a part of it in any way, not in the ensemble, not as Joan. And they had many different Joans, including Lena Hall, who I had worked with prior. Yeah, and friends of mine, like my former roommate Ada had been a part of it. My friend Damon had been in it. A lot of people had cycled through it, and I knew the music director very well and the director as well. I'd never met David, although he was close friends with my friend Justin. And it seemed actually kind of last minute. Like I think the person that they expected to play Joan, they like parted ways like mutually. And then they were having auditions, and I got called in. And what's really cool about this is that the woman who was holding the casting call, the casting director, was the same person who cast me in The Last Goodbye, which was my first professional show I'd ever done in
I didn't
2010.
know that.
Yep.
Wow.
It was like a very full circle moment. I think she sort of pushed for it. And I had worked with Alex Timbers years before in 2008 on a show called Dance Dance Revolution, and he was the director. And so with the two of them combined, they called me in. It was very last minute. It basically was the night before I had to go in. And I learned this music in like 24 hours, like 2 songs from the show, and I had to sing like a song from my book. And then it just kept going round after round. While we were doing 86th, I was in my final callback, which was either the 3rd or the 4th callback. And yeah, they gave me the call while we were doing that workshop, and it was completely baffling to me that they cast me. And then it became this incredible experience. And it was right when Trump got elected was when we started rehearsals. So it was a bit of a tough time to be going into such a, fearsome and an overwhelming show. But I think it also was like the perfect time for the show. So yeah.
Yeah. How does your life relate to Joan of Arc? How did you relate to her in modern day times?
I mean, I think it was complicated in a way because obviously, like religion, I have no, I'm not a religious person in any way, and obviously, she's so much about like she heard the angels and God spoke to her. But I think what I really related to was being both an outcast and being also wanting to be a leader in a community and wanting to bring people together for a cause. And like,
Wow.
as silly as it may sound, like holding my balloons on Dyke March and leading a bunch of like friends and queers down the street, is a microcosm for that. But like wanting to be a part of a community and to lead a community, and not necessarily in like the intense ways that she came to it, but I think her vulnerability and her, and her fearlessness, they were things that I both hoped to be, but also could relate to.
Yeah, and I saw that performance that you did of Joan of Arc. It was quite amazing. And so, I want to skip ahead to some stuff after that.
Yeah.
Like your performance on Transparent, which was
Yeah.
this amazing show that I loved so much on Amazon, right? And how did you get that show? Is it your agent? What happened?
No, this is a cool story actually. So years ago when I was on tour with Tune Yards, which was in 2014,
Right.
I came home for a break to New York. And this was like 9 months on the road all over the world, like Australia, Europe, like it was everywhere. And I came home and I had gotten a request, like a phone, like a message or an email from this mother and her daughter, and they were doing this series called the What's Underneath Project for their website called Style Like You. And they asked,
Right.
Leah Delaria did it, like anybody from like super famous people to like nobodies, like me, did it. And what they were asking was for people to sort of talk about their style while also undressing down to your skivvies and talking about, when you strip it all away, like what makes you you, but also why do you present the way you present? And you talk about, just themes come up and you basically strip down and it becomes this very vulnerable thing. Well, Joey Soloway saw that YouTube episode. And so years before, I was already obsessed with Transparent as a fan. I mean, I probably had never seen a show where I felt so seen as like a queer Jewish younger person. And, I just loved that show so much. I mean, it meant so much to me. And I'm on Facebook at this time still. I'm not on social media now, but I still was on Facebook. And I get this message from like a pseudonym of Joey Soloway. And I'm like, certainly this is not real. And it was them. And they were like, hey, I saw your What's Underneath video. I think you're a cool queer. Like, what do you do? Like, what's your thing? Like, I think I saw that you do Tune Yard. And anyway, we struck up a friendship, a very loose relationship, like an acquaintanceship. And we kept in touch. And years later, my ex and I were out in LA, and Joey invited me and my ex to the set of Transparent. And we got to go to set, and they like shut everything down, like stopped everything like when we came in, and they introduced us to everybody. And it was this episode where Caitlyn Jenner was in like this fever dream of Gabby Hoffman's like character.
Yes.
On the set of Wheel of Fortune. And so it was this really cool day. And we just kept in touch. And as they started to come up with what they were going to be doing for that season, they thought that I might be a cool option as like a doppelganger for Gabby Hoffman's character, who was going to be coming out as non-binary. And anyway, it was honestly Facebook. It was very weird, and that's how it happened. And then I
Okay.
ended up, yeah.
Yes, Audra, thank you. I wanted to ask you about that because so many people just suppose that you're non-binary. They say to me, "Why aren't you saying they?" And I try to explain the difference between gender identity and gender expression. And you just can't look
Yeah.
at someone's gender expression and just think they're non-binary. It's just crazy.
I mean, I think the whole point of non-binariness is that the presentation doesn't always look how you might think it would. Like a person can be high femme and go by they them. Like I think that there's a different, for me, I think I've dressed and presented, as we've talked about, like outside the binary for as long as I can remember, like, over
Always.
over like the better of part of 2 decades almost. But I feel a sense of personal pride in looking how I look, presenting how I present, and also using the pronoun she, her, which I feel is a gender expansion. And that's not at all a commentary on those who go by they, them, nor those who choose other pronouns. But that's just what feels right for me. It feels right. It feels like I can expand the identity of she, her. And that feels true to me.
So, would you still consider yourself gender queer?
I do like that term. I'm not sure it's a term that people are using anymore. I don't know. I feel sometimes I'm like old. I can't keep up. But I think of myself. I think of myself as gender queer and gender expansive, and yeah, I would say both of those things feel right to me.
Good, because I want everybody, if they get a chance, I put in the fortune cookie going across JoeLampert.com because you have to, even on the landing page, your picture on the landing page is, can you imagine? I looked at that picture and I said, okay, I'm going to do a back bend and I'm going to put one hand down. It's like, what?
I was young. That was like my mid-20s. Come on. I can't do that position now.
So if anybody goes to JoeLampert.com and goes to that landing page, it's amazing. But you know what I found there, speaking of transparent? I found a link to a YouTube video of you doing a song from Transparent Finale, which is called Father's House. I want to play a little of it, but do you want me to play your solo version? Because that's more of you. Or do you want me to play the Gabby...
Up to you. The reason I did that solo version was because a Jewish organization who was doing an online festival who was connected to me via Faith and Joey Soloway. Like it just felt right to do that song because they got me involved in this all-night Jewish, I think it was a Purim festival or a Shavuos festival.
Did they have groggers and everything?
No, it was all online. It was all in the pandemic. Anyway, but this passage was based on the Lech Lecha, which is a Torah passage. So it felt right to do it that way.
I would like to do your solo. So this solo was Gabby Hoffman and Joe on the finale. It was the finale episode, correct?
Yeah, the finale episode
of Amazon's Transparent. But this is Joe's version of this song, and it is
written
gorgeous.
by Faith Holloway. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get it on here.
Run from your father's house. There's a land that I will show you. I will make your name a blessing as you float on out. Run from your father's house. Run from your father's house. There's a lesson I will teach you. I will honor all who honor you. I'll curse all who curse you. And all of the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. And when you get home, you won't be alone. I promise to not look away.
What a voice. Listen to that.
And when you get home, you won't be alone. Run from your father's house. Run from your father's house.
That's just a little bit of that. Woo!
Very sweet.
Yes, that is just gorgeous. That is the Joe Lampert voice I know and love. And when we wrote Thank you, Steph. When we wrote our show together, we got to sing together. There's Martha giving us a party hat. Martha was around when we were writing the show.
Oh, yeah, she was.
Yes, my mother was there. Okay, so you go to Transparent. You work on an amazing hit Amazon show. Okay. Then before that, you had appeared in Orange is the New Black, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And you played an extremely different character on that. Can you talk about that character?
Yes, I played a character called Marie Brock. It was sort of like season 5, I think, like 5, 6, and 7. And in 5, it had come after the turning point in Orange Is the New Black in the season prior, where there had been a prison riot. And so they split up all of the prisoners. And so it allowed for them to like write in these new storylines with these new characters. And one of them was played by this a friend now named Henny, and she kind of was like this new leader, like kind of like gang-ish leader in the new prison that we were in, where some of the characters went. And I was just playing like a lackey for her. So I was coming off meth, like was in for drugs, and was just sort of, I was really very briefly in certain episodes, but I beat up one of the main characters for drugs. I taught a dance class. I taught a dance class to the inmates. Little things here and there. And I kind of like was in a sort of network with like 5 or 6 other new characters, some of whom went on to have bigger roles. But yeah, it was really fun. Really fun. Cool to like be on that set and work with all these different directors, because that's one of those shows where they have to have a continuity director, because there's always a different writer and a different director for every episode. So it was cool. It was cool.
I remember they had to do fake tattoos on you or something. Wait,
it wasn't fake tattoos. It was like pick marks, like of picking scabs as like a meth addict.
That's what it was. And I was like, oh my God, they really went to the detail. Let me ask you, did you talk to Leah Delaria? Because you and me and Leah did a show together.
Yeah.
And was she on set with you?
She wasn't. She had actually been like weirdly written out for most of that season that I was on, and then came back like in flashes toward toward the end of the series. But she and I were not on set together. Uzo and I did see each other on set a couple of times. And actually a couple like other random people, like there was a guy who played a guard who was in my a cappella group in undergrad. There were a few fun run-ins, and it was cool.
Okay. I love everything. I like that you did that. And then you did another show on Hulu called The Path, which I haven't seen. What year was that? Because I have to watch that now.
That was the same year as Orange is the New Black, the first season that I was on. So that was like 2018, I think, and into 2019. Okay. I did a couple episodes on it where I played. The Path is about, and I'm blanking out on his name, Aaron. He was in Breaking Bad, Aaron Paul.
Right.
It was a show, and it was about like a cult and their cult followers. And I played like a follower that came on, and I actually think I was supposed to be played by a cis guy, because the name of the character was Jeremy, and I don't think it was like wink, wink, non-binary. It wasn't. But they kept the name Jeremy. So I just ended up in a queer relationship. I was in a lesbian relationship with another person who was like, we were both being like tutored by like the lead cult leader, like about how to love each other. Anyway, it was a very brief stint, but it was really fun.
Now, Joe, you have added, you're completely off social media now. So that's why I could not tag you in anything. And you used to be in social media when I met you. Hold on. I have 2 questions to do with this, because this is very important to me. You're a very well-known actor, singer, kind of a person, and you added the word equality to all of your names on everything, including here on Fireside, Joe Equality Lampert. So what made you stand up for that so strongly to put it in your name?
Well, it's actually a kind of funny story also, because back in, I think it was 2008 when there was the March on Washington to overturn DOMA. So when that march happened, it became a trend actually on Facebook. Kind of like, you know, on Facebook now, sometimes it'll be like a black square or like a rainbow or like, you know, standing with France or like whatever it is that you can put on your profile picture. Well, it was like a moment where everybody was adding equality to their middle name as this was being like, you know, fighting to be repealed. And I marched on Washington. And I used this as my middle name, like with everybody else. But then pretty soon after that march and the repealing of it, Facebook started to crack down on people, and they were like kicking people off of Facebook whose names were not their legal names. But for some reason, they never cracked down on my name. And so I kept it in perpetuity. And then people started to call me that in programs and things. And then I just felt like it was really right. I almost wanted to change my name legally to that, but I didn't go that far yet. But anyway, yeah, it just kind of became like a little like hashtagable, but also beyond hashtagable, it just felt right. It felt like kind of like serendipitous that it became this. And then that's how I sort of just became known in our sort of smaller community. So I
Now,
just kept it.
you said it was a good hashtag, but yet you're off social media. So
Yeah.
was there like a straw that broke the camel's back where you said, I'm out of here?
Yeah, Trump meets Joan of Arc, because I knew that I was going to be the poster for the Joan of Arc, and that felt really intense. And I everybody's a critic, and I didn't really feel like reading everybody's critiques. And I felt really vulnerable. But I also was so overwhelmed by the black hole of just like everybody just screaming into the void. And it was giving me so much anxiety. So when January 1st, 2017 came around, which was when I was going to start Joan rehearsals and when Trump was going to be inaugurated, I just decided I'm good. And that was when I got off.
So that's 5 years of not being on social media. How do you feel?
Great. I feel absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, like thank God, Really.
It's true, because when I asked you about Fireside, and you said, how many people are in the audience usually? I said, not many, but we live stream and they'll come and watch replays. And you said, fine, whatever it was. Because I said, most people being on social media would be so conscious of like, how many followers do we have? How many people are in the audience?
Honestly, it's like you just don't worry about those things. At some point, you start to remember that when you look up at the sky, you don't need to post about it. You can just think about it.
That is great. That is great. You don't need to post about the sky. Just think about it. But, you also bring up a really good thing about, let's just face it, mental health. Mm-hmm. And the way our show is described, actually, by our director and us putting it together, Sivan Batat, I'm making a shout out to you. You said you call me your spirit animal, which we'll talk about in a minute. But anyway,
maybe I'm not supposed to use that term. I don't even know. Okay,
who knows? But anyway, we were described as a musical exploration of queer Jewish identities with your favorite dynamite and dapper intergenerational duo and a dose of psych meds.
Yeah.
So people, we have trying to destigmatize mental illness. Some of us are incredibly creative, but we're also highly anxious.
Yeah.
So how do you feel? Where are you now? I know it always is a fluid thing in our lives, but we say a dose of psych meds and we make fun of it, but they're kind of our lifeline too, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason why we even include that is in a cheeky way in our description is because it was another thing that came up when we were writing, was like, we do happen to be neurotic, dyke, queer Jews on meds, and we're not afraid to talk about that. That's not necessarily that. It's not that the meds are funny. It's just interesting that that's just all these years apart from each other, and for very various different reasons and different, epigenetic reasons meets whatever our own psychiatric health. We happen to both be on medication, and for a long time you encouraged me to get on it, and I wasn't on it. And yeah, I just don't feel that there's any taboo around it. So I think that's why we talk about it and why we kind of make light of it, and also, poking fun at ourselves, but also want to bring up something that's super helpful for us and serious.
Right. So. And yeah, I appreciate it. When we looked back at our live stream that we did for Long Wharf, I laughed at our first song about that. And I want to talk about the serious part of our Jewish identity.
Yeah.
And I want to play a little if it's okay, but I know your project, can you explain how ambitious you got for this final project? It devastated me when I watched it.
Yeah. So what they ask us to do in this program for this grad degree, for this master's, is, it's a full year. So the summer component, which starts on June 21st, is either an internship or a thesis. And most people go on to try to do internships because this is a career expanding type of program. But they still ask us to do a kind of mini thesis in the spring quarter, which they call the Study in Sound or the Spring Symposium. And so the symposium can be a project you started that you want to make like a fuller realized version of. It can be a fully new project that's separate of all your finals and classes. I decided to sort of expand and adapt something that I made last quarter for my oral history for sound artists class, in which I interviewed my mother about this inquiry, this historical inquiry about what does it mean to be a first generation American of, Jewish Holocaust surviving parents growing up in the East, in the East Coast of the United States in that baby boomer age, post Holocaust. And I wanted to expand upon that because I realized that actually plenty of women in my family were accidental oral historians, or maybe not so accidentally. And there was tape of my grandfather on his deathbed in 2008 telling his story about fighting in the British Royal Air Force against the Germans. There was my grandma from 1993 telling her Holocaust survival story, as well as her Uncle Martin. And I got to talk to a few of my mom's cousins. And so all in all, I had all this audio and this tape, and I wanted to kind of do this archival revival where I would make an installation where every speaker, like a sound speaker, would also play the role of a speaker from my family, as though we were all sitting around a living room, which is an impossibility because none of us could be the age we are in all these 4 generations talking about these subjects at this very time. But I wanted to try to revive these ghosts and bring the living to the dead and the dead to the living. And I made an installation for it. And it was a 5-hour loop, 20-minute loops where people could come in and sort of sit in our living room and hear these stories about intergenerational remembering and trauma and things about Judaism and Israel and America and Poland. And,
I love that you call it oral historian, AURAL.
Yeah, oral, like the sound of oral history.
Exactly. May I play a little of it? I know it's your thesis.
Sure.
Right?
I wish you could like show it the video because like the pictures I think are helpful too. But I think it. Yeah.
I think if we start, we'll get the soundscape. Well, I could hold the computer up. I don't know.
No, we'll do whatever.
But the soundscape, do I want me to start right at the beginning or a little bit in? Or
sure, no, at the beginning. I mean, it's cool because the guy who took video of it put my audio out of order. So he put like my actual last vignette first, which I think is kind of cool.
So what you're going to hear is a soundscape of Joe's relatives and how she edited and arranged it for this installation about what she just spoke about, the Holocaust. Let's listen.
Anyway, I wish you the best of luck on this journey that you're taking. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for your interest.
This is the story.
I really appreciate it.
This is what I know. You can ask me more later if you want. This is what I know for now.
That's enough. I'm going to cry.
I have to go.
And it's very special that you're so interested in my life. I love you.
I love you too.
I have a plane to catch.
And I miss Grandma and Grandpa.
I bless you. I thank you. I appreciate you. Don't ever think bad of me. Tell your younger children about me.
This is literally like the best gift in the whole world. I'm like so grateful.
All right, so this is about remembering.
It was a story. By the way, there are many different stories for each of these stories, depending who told the story.
And there's lots of stories around that. We have to take everything that our relatives tell us with a grain of salt.
I never knew the whole story, but
that's another story.
Tell the rest of the story.
This is an incredible story, a very rare story. We don't know where the truth lies in these stories.
The story I heard was, I knew that
the Gestapo was already in front of the building, and that was the end.
I knew that
He perished in a concentration camp.
I knew that I do remember the conversation. It was a story. She told me the story. She didn't tell me the feelings or the experience.
So all of this like unspoken history, it like permeated my psyche on many, many levels. I have had this in my blood, and I really feel like I want to unpack it all.
Party animal?
Huh?
You were a party animal?
That's funny when it's party animal. The story that devastated me was when you said to your grandmother, I think, and your sister passed away. She goes, passed away. She was murdered. Let's just say
It was
what it was.
it was my mom's cousin Sarit,
Oh,
who is Israeli, whose father, she tells the story about her father's family. Her father was in Israel during the Holocaust and tried to get papers for his sister and parents to come, and they would not give them to him, and then they died. And a goy, a Christian, witnessed it and was able to kind of, through oral history, tell him how his sister and his parents died, which is that they were in Kielce in Poland, which is where most of my mom's family is from, mom's side of the family, my mom's side of the family. And they were taken on a truck, and his sister tried to escape, and she was chased by dogs and shot. But anyway, I say, and she also passed away during that time. And yeah, she goes, no, not passed away, murdered. They were all murdered. It's not passed away, it's murdered. And it was a very vulnerable moment to include, because I obviously feel bad that I even said it that way, but it was a powerful moment. So
yeah. And I wish if anybody could see the images that are going with this, because it's this very stark room with very low lighting and just you walking and people walking. It's almost like we're watching somebody walk through an installation. I love it. I think it's beautiful. Yeah. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about, it's painful to talk about, but in our lives we have breakups that are horrible. Terrible. And you wrote an incredible song about it, right? And it's called, you came to a realization, right? It's called Deserved You.
Yeah.
Can I play a little of that one? And then
sure.
we're gonna take some questions after this. So this is Joe's song called Deserved You. And I think, Joe, didn't you tell me that you wrote it and sent it? This is the miracle of technology, right? That somebody can write a song, right? And then they can just somehow send it to another person. And the person...
the story around this is that during the pandemic, a friend of mine told me when I was in this devastating depression after a very difficult breakup, to just start to free write. And I was very, very opposed to it, but I did it. And I only sent it to him, Matthew Dean Marsh. And he took those words, which was very personal and vulnerable, and he actually wrote them into the lyrics of this song and the melody. And during the pandemic, he tried to teach it to me, and I just couldn't handle it. I was just like, we got to table this. When I came here and I knew I had to make a final for my sound production class, my intro to sound production, he happened to be coming here for Thanksgiving and right around the time when I needed to make this project happen. And where I decided, why don't we record this in our incredible recording facilities that we have here for basically free because we pay tuition. And so he played piano, and he hired a trumpeter, which was really cool. And I hired a friend in my cohort who makes noise music out of instruments. So he'll take a piano apart and he'll make all these, and I wanted to make a heartbreak sweep that then opens and cracks open into a song. And so that's what we did.
Ja, I want to congratulate you, first of all, because I knew you during this. And by the way, everybody, it wasn't just a normal relationship. It was a very high profile in New York relationship. And that's why it's twice as hard. And I'm glad you're off social media.
Yeah.
It was very devastating. And that's that. Here is Joe taking that song, making medicine out of poison, that's what I think it is. So beautiful.
I toppled you, pummeled you, brought you down to size. A tiny particle with no surface to land on. Tape on repeat, tape on repeat, tape on repeat. Did it take me so long to wait?
And here comes this beautiful song out of it.
I am rootless, I'm blowing in the wind, forgotten, set aside like a broken toy. But I'm heavy, yet I'm nothing, like I'm embarrassed to exist. I looked love in the face, battered and bruised enough. I keep turning the page, but it's completely blank now. I forget my belief in nothing, if that means I can go back to loving you. I look love in the face, battered and bruised now, 'cause I never thought I deserved you.
Okay, I just want to stop there. I look love in the face, battered and bruised. Come on. Because I thought, then you take responsibility, that I never deserved you. To take that thought, people don't take responsibility for breakups in that heartfelt way. And I don't know if you want to go down this road. Let's not.
Well, I wanted to give credit to Silver Wallace, who was my roommate here, she took my writing and improvised the beginning, and I cut it together. So what was cool about this is she sings the beginning and then I sing the song. But what's cool is that I got to like be the engineer on this. Like I recorded it, I set up the mics, I did the session, and then my TA Troy Cruz co-mixed it with me. So it really was a collaborative effort. And yeah, while I don't necessarily think that we need to indulge in like the emotional aspects of it right now, I do think if nothing else, it was a healing exercise of art, of art. So,
and I think that's what art should be. Thank you, Audra. I am now in the last 15 minutes of this show, and I always take Q&A. If anybody wants to speak, please, please, please. I see there are two people that might want to come up and say something. Please come up and we'll call on you one at a time. So who is my first person who's up here? Stephanie, do you want to come to camera or not?
Oh my God, I'm not even okay after that song. I mean, in a good way. God, that was so pretty. I'm not even okay. That was amazing. Oh my God. Wow. I just, sorry, okay, Deborah, here's what was hitting me, and Joe, since you're obviously close to Deborah, this might even make sense to you too, but Deborah, what was literally hitting me was when you and I had that conversation about that story, when you said, Daddy, what color is the music?
Right.
That's what that felt like to me when I was listening to that song, Joe. That was absolutely, and I only got a snippet of it. Like, that was just incredible. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say, sorry, I was going to come up and be like, hi, and be all happy, but that song just wiped me out in the most beautiful way. But Joe, it is just, Deborah knows some of the coolest, people. Hi. Deborah knows some of the coolest people, and you are not only not an exception to that role, but you are exceptional. And this has just been, I actually canceled a meeting so I could continue to listen to your conversation. I was like texting someone, and I think I made something up like, I have to pull over my car, something. I was completely full of shit. But this has just been an amazing conversation. We have to be honest. And Joe, you're just this like remarkable human who I am so grateful I've been able to sit here and listen to this conversation and hear some of your music and your story. So that's actually all I wanted to say. Just wow. And it's so nice to meet you.
It's really nice to meet you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is an amazing person. I try to bring amazing people on here for people
you
to
always
learn.
You always do. And I'm going to bounce so anyone else can join too. But Joe, nice to meet you. Deborah,
nice
thanks for having
you,
me.
Stephanie. Thank you.
I see Laura's on here. Laura, do you want to come to camera or just unmute and talk to Joe?
I'll just unmute. Wow, what a fabulous combination. I just happened to jump in, Deborah. I saw you were on, and I was hit with the discussion about the Holocaust. And then it went from that into this, and it was like, wow, that's pretty deep. Yeah.
It's Joe really
deep.
does, take her life and put it into art, because if you don't, it sits inside, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it can feel really poisonous. I think it has to be turned into some kind of medicine. It's not easy to do. I certainly am not pro at it, but.
Hey, Joe, I write as well. I have this, I'm kind of a nerdy financial executive, investment banker type, Wall Street type, but I have this writings from the heart that I do. Do you find, and I find that my writing, my creative side actually is enhanced during the darkest, toughest times. Do you find that same type of thing? Is it just kind of part, like the happy sunshine days don't seem to bring out the creativity of the depth of like writing and music and stuff? Is that, what do you think?
I think I do understand that. And I also feel like I have not necessarily created a ton on my own in my life. So I feel like the incidental, the like residue of sadness, if somebody pushes me or like, helps reinforce like artistic output, I wouldn't say like the sadness is helpful, but I do think obviously there's so much coming. It's like you're seeping out of your pores. So it makes sense that it would be a time of a lot of creativity. But I think, I actually regret in some ways I don't want to use the word capitalizing in a capitalist way, but I just mean, I do regret that I haven't pushed myself more to write from those places, or even sometimes to ingest it all. Sometimes when I'm that depressed, actually, it's very hard for me to listen to music, which I normally love, or to read, or to write at all. So I think it's amazing that you feel like you can be productive in those times, because I've had to have a lot of help to get there. And so I would like to be able to use those kind of healthy artistic outputs more, and not necessarily like, not necessarily that I can't feel okay and create, but I do think creation for me does come out of a sense of anxiety. So in that way, I do totally relate, because I think a lot of anxiety, even when Deb and I wrote those 5 songs, like I was up at her house in Mayapack and I wanted to like leave because I was just feeling so not because of her, but I was feeling so out of body and depressed. And yet we came up with all of this material, and I got hit by a moped and I was like depressed, all these things. And there was a lot of creativity that did come out of that. But I think it's actually having a collaborator that has helped that shape itself into something more than just tears on a page and no writing,
Yeah.
So, awesome.
Great question. Laura, that's a great question. Yeah.
I love that you're in finance, but also a creative person, like the left brain, right brain. I'm kind of going into that realm myself, not finance, but licensing and sync and clearance and the laws around that, while also wanting to put music to film and television, which feels like a left brain, right brain thing as well. So I admire that.
Oh, thank you. I think it's good for your personal evolution and your EQ for sure.
Yes,
right.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, lovely to meet you. I'll go back down. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to come up in these last few minutes? Because I also wanted to I wanted to play something, just because I was so proud of it myself, which was Joe singing my arrangement of My Funny Valentine. But because it's a song everybody knows. And I just thought maybe if it's up here on YouTube. Yes, it is. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't put most of those tunes up, but I definitely put that one up.
Yeah. Is it called? Oh, can you explain why you called it the Joan Didions?
Oh,
was that just
That was just honestly, it just felt funny and right. Like, I think more than anything, it was called An Evening of Magpie Melodies, and I called it Joe and the Joan Didions because it just felt alliterative and fun, and she's so inspiring and incredible, and it felt like semi-political and socially conscious, and then also just funny. But the Magpie Melodies thing came from it came from the fact that I had all these incredible friends and collaborators and people who are just amazing musicians like Deborah. I gave them like a list of 10 songs and then asked them to give me their top 3 of things that they could imagine revisiting, reimagining, reinterpreting, and remusicalizing from my voice, from their point of view. And this was the one that Deborah chose. And she knew what instruments I had going on, and she chose to do it for the backup singer and Matthew Dean Marsh, who was also my conductor, for 3 voices and a cello. And it was just so cool because it was the only classic like American songbook tune I had in the whole show. So
I'm going to do something no one's ever done on Fireside. I'm going to play this, but I'm going to try to hold up the computer, and because your performance is so beautiful. Let me see if I can do this.
Oh God.
No, it's not going to do it, is it?
I mean, it's like there, but
Valentine, sweet comic Valentine, you make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek?
that was
Is
so
your
beautiful.
mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart? But don't change a hair for me. Not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine. Stay.
I never wrote for a cello before.
I can't believe that. It's so beautiful what you did.
Here's my favorite part that I did with the background vocals.
Oh yeah. You killed it, Deborah.
I can't believe I did this.
I actually don't like how I sound, but you did an amazing job.
Listen to the applause you get.
If you care for me, stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day.
Great work, Deborah.
Oh my God. That was, I did a first on Fireside. I showed a video. Well, listen, somebody's asking to, Stephanie is saying, wow, wow, wow. Listen, I just want to say, this has been one of the greatest hours of our lives. Please look for our project. Because we are doing our show at, what are we doing? A workshop? When are we doing our workshop?
We're going to be doing like a workshop with, I'm not sure if there'll be an in-person presentation yet, or if it'll just be us filming some footage and putting it online. I don't know, because the Long Wharf Theater is now no longer based in a theater. So they're still figuring out what their spaces are going to be.
Got it.
But I just have to say, guys, thank you so much for anybody who tuned in. This is so sweet. I thank you, Deborah, for including me in this. And I know it's been a while that we've tried to make this happen. So I'm really glad it happened today during Pride Month. And I just thank you for the thoughtful questions and for
Oh, Joe, I am so happy you're saying that. And as we go out, and Joe thanked everybody. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I am going to the release of the Rainbow Lullaby album that Joe and I did a song together. This is for LGBTQIA parents. So they asked some of us to write a song and get our singer, and I chose Joe. And my song is called "Mommy and Mama." And it is about two lesbian mothers singing a lullaby to their child. It's funny that we never had lullabies like this for children.
I know.
Right?
It's a pretty incredible idea. And the man who produced it, he had just lost his mother recently and is a gay, queer man. And this is really meaningful. I think he dedicated the record to her, and it's really beautiful.
So I'm just going to play a little bit. We can talk a little over it and say goodnight, but I'm going to this album release party. If anybody wants a CD, DM me on Insta, and I will send you a CD, or you can order it.
Mommy and Mama are saying goodnight, keeping you warm, holding you tight. Mommy and Mama are tucking you in, keeping you safe tonight.
Joe, you sound so beautiful.
This is my lullaby voice.
This is two lesbians having a song to sing to their kid.
About rainbows and sunshine.
This was a tricky section.
Tomorrow will be a new day, and we'll play. So lay on your pillow and dream away. Mommy and Mama are hugging you tight, keeping you safe tonight.
So I just want to say that's how we're going to go out, with Joe singing a beautiful, beautiful song.
Written by the amazing, incredible Deborah Barsha.
We had a really, really good time on this talk, and I am blown away that we finally got it together to do it.
Me too.
And please, please look for our show called Conversations with Ourselves. This is Barsha, Barsha, Barsha on a queer day. LGBTQIA, we have to celebrate this month, and we got to put all those laws away that are trying to come into existence. Can we please fight